What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Luke Rockhold, Paulo Costa. This was one of the most bizarre fights I've ever seen in my entire life, but my God, was I entertained for 15 minutes.
For sure. The most handsomest fight the UFC could have ever put on. I mean, these two guys couldn't look better. And Luke Rockhold, Polo Ralph Lauren model, looks like $1 million. And then they walk out with Paulo Costa in the red corner. He comes out second, and it makes Luke Rockhold's body look like an average man. You're like, what is going on? This is just insane. There's been jokes about the secret juice that's been taking place all week. That was hilarious.
Spoiler alert, it's a glass of red wine.
There it is. Yeah, no, I think last night, I don't know if it was red wine, but I think it was a glass of altitude, which really played a factor. Nobody was talking about how the altitude might play a role in this fight or this card in general, but if it did play a role, it was obvious in that co-main event last night. Luke Rockhold was zapped of his energy within the first 2.5 minutes of the first round, and I was blown away at how he was just huffing and puffing with his hands on his knees, bent over halfway with a trained killer like Paulo Costa in there, throwing shots at him while he's doing that. All the while, Paulo Costa's sweating his face off, can't hold his hands up, not throwing anything back at him because he's trying to catch his breath too. All in all, it was just the weirdest thing, and I think the real winner of last night, aside from Paulo Costa getting his hand raised, was the altitude. Nobody beats that altitude. I don't think that Paulo Costa, with all those muscles, was able to keep the lactic acid away, and he couldn't catch his breath. Luke Rockhold being out for 3 years, you don't want to test your ring rust, or if you have any, in a place like Salt Lake City where you're high up there and you're not used to it. I just think this was a recipe for disaster for both of these men, and nobody realized it until after the fight.
But boy, did it make for an entertaining fight. And you talk about these guys both being bodied up, but looks can be deceiving sometimes because you would look at these two gentlemen and say, my God, these guys should have cardio for days. But that's, to the untrained eye, they would probably seem that way. But actually packing on a lot of muscle can zap your cardio at times. A cardio machine's body looks a lot more like Nate Diaz and a lot less like Paulo Costa. But I think one thing to consider as well is I didn't realize Rockhold had a staph infection until I saw that sleeve over his leg, and they said that he was given medical clearance to fight as long as he wore the sleeve. Now, my assumption is that he was on some type of antibiotic, oral antibiotic, for the staph infection that he had. And one thing we know about antibiotics is that they can absolutely zap you of your energy. So if you're trying to fight somebody like Paulo Costa at altitude like Salt Lake City and on medication such as antibiotics, you have really stacked the deck against you. And I give Luke a lot of credit for some of the shots he landed. He did a really good job in some of those reversals. When you got a black belt like Paulo Costa that has your back and you can continuously recover your guard and then start to, manifest some offense of your own. I mean, Luke Rockhold has done so much for this sport. He was the WEC champion. He was the UFC champion. He's been around the game forever. He doesn't need to do anything else. So if he wants to stick with this retirement, then more power to him, and I give him all the credit in the world. But if he said, look, I think I still got it in me and I can come back and fight, I certainly wouldn't argue against that. He looked very crisp at times. It just seemed like it was an energy problem to me. To me, he looked like the cleaner striker. He just looked like he just couldn't manifest enough offense in enough bursts to really win rounds, and I think that was because of his lack of energy.
Yeah, and I think that he showed us some skills. He's definitely still got it, and I'd love to see him at sea level against somebody like Paulo Costa. I mean, he jumped right back into the deepest end of the heavyweight of the 85 division.
They almost look like heavyweights.
Yeah, both of them did, and it's crazy to see somebody in there that is the same size as Paulo Costa that's in that division, because you look at them both and you're blown away at how big they are. I can't believe those guys made 185
Paulo
pounds.
was probably 220 last night when he walked into the cage.
Still shredded. But what this fight lacked in skill and display of true martial arts skill, it made up for in entertainment. I mean, this was an entertaining fight, and I'm not one of these purists that exclusively wants to see the highest level of technique displayed every time. I'm down for a fun show. I'm down for a freak show. I'll tune into Jake Paul when he boxes Tyron Woodley or when he boxes, Nate Robinson. I'm up for those types of things. As long as you sell the story well and you can promote the fight right, I'm up for it. And while this fight was, targeted as being one of the most high-skilled 185 fights, a number one contenders match for both of these guys, no matter who wins, I was expecting fireworks and high-level skills like we always see out of them. We did not get that, but we got one of the most entertaining Luke Rockhold fights we've ever seen and one of the most entertaining Paulo Costa fights we've ever seen, all the way down to the last seconds where Luke Rockhold is wiping the blood off of his face onto Paulo Costa's face.
That was just downright weird.
It was crazy. I don't think when we're trying to sell mixed martial arts in the UFC to the mainstream media and the people that are out there that don't really know about the sport, we should maybe leave that video out of the sizzle that we show them.
It's like, you know, the fans say, or the organization saying, we promise, guys, we've come a long way since 1993, and then Luke Rockhold saying, hold my beer, check this out.
Exactly. This is what we're doing in 2022. Yeah. So that was a little bit crazy. But for me, I thought it was entertaining. There was multiple things in that fight that will 100% be going viral and circulating through the internet this next week. And I can't wait to see what they do next with Paulo Costa. You know, Luke Rockhold was an emotional mess, and I don't say that in a derogatory term. Like, I just think that he was a train wreck after that fight. Yeah. He retired. He took his gloves off. He was totally transparent with us. He said he was, you know, he's just too old.
Yeah.
And he's tired. He is truly tired of the hustle, of the grind that this sport, you know, puts on the body. It weighs on the mind all day, just like it weighs on the body. And if he never fights again, he did more than enough. That epic Strikeforce undefeated run, all of the stuff he's done to become the UFC champion. We don't need any more out of Luke Rockhold. But if he decides to come back again, I do think he has a place in the sport because he showed us that even though he wasn't the most skillful Luke Rockhold, he's still a very entertaining Rockhold.
I think you're right, and I think the thing that Paulo Costa doesn't want to hear, but is the best piece of advice for his career, is he needs to go up to 205. Yeah. I mean, the 185, the skill set that a lot of the fighters at the top of the heap possess at 185 is higher than that of Paulo Costa's. He's just a lot more athletic, a lot more powerful, and a lot stronger, and that's what's carried him through. But I think if he didn't have to put himself through those extreme weight cuts and just fought at 205, he would be an absolute force to be reckoned with. He could take some time and work on his technique. His camps wouldn't be so focused around the weight cut and the whole joke with Paddy the Baddy and trying to figure out how he's going to suck himself down to 186 pounds. I think and then if he wants to fight for a title again, it's got to be 185 on the nose, and he really can't make that anymore, especially as he gets older. It's going to be harder and harder. So congratulations to Luke Rockhold. Wonderful career. I know I said WEC champion earlier. I meant to say Strikeforce and UFC champion, Hall of Famer for sure. But I think the fighter that's going to continue fighting Paulo Costa needs to bump it up one weight class.
Yeah, and I've got one cool little thing that I would probably recommend to Paulo Costa if I could. If I were him, I would say, look, I'm coming off a win. I'd love to fight soon. And he said in the post-fight press conference, just give me 2 or 3 months to recover and I'm ready to get back in action. If I were him, I would like to insert myself as the replacement, the third fighter, the alternate, if you will, for the Yuri Prochazka versus Glover Teixeira fight. I don't think anybody... That's a
great idea.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would bat an eye at Paulo Costa getting a shot at Glover Teixeira or Yuri Prochazka, and I think that would be a competitive fight no matter who gets that opportunity. And likely he won't fight. He'll weigh in at 205, which would be much easier than 185 for him, and then he probably would get paid a little bit of money for the UFC just for doing that and saving the card if need be. And then, like he said, he wanted to fight in January in Rio de Janeiro or wherever the card is in Brazil that's taking place in January. Go down there, fight somebody at 85, and just see what happens next. But for me, that would be the next move I would do. I'd say, look, I'll go fight as the alternate. I'll weigh in and everything for that fight with Yuri Prochazka, Glover Teixeira, and just see what happens. If I were him, that's what I would do, but who am I?
Thinking outside of the box.
Exactly.
I like it. Well, guys, drop us a comment. Let us know what you thought of this incredibly wild fight. If you're new here, we talk all things MMA, combat sports, so if that's your jam, we do appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel and a like on this video. Until next time, have a wonderful day.
Peace.